Hi everyone, Larry Kruger here. We're going to walk you through this little course, demystifying moving. It's all about relocating. Hopefully, we're going to save you some money. We're definitely going to explain pretty much everything about relocation. A bird's eye view of it at the very least, so you at least have a good understanding of what you're about to do. And of course, power, knowledge is power. So you'll be able to kind of take a look at this as an educated consumer, make some good decisions as you work your way through the process. So um, it's a interesting little course, and I always try to wrap a little front porch philosophy around things. It's a great time to make some real changes in your personal life as well as your physical location. Well, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm just going to grab my laser pointer here. Bear with me. We're going to talk. Firstly, in the first little module, we're going to talk about all the considerations you have to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at relocating. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of things to take into consideration. But if you go in with eyes wide open, it's a much more manageable process. We're going to talk about all the things you have to do pre-move, the house hunting trips. If you're looking for what type of, if it's a new home, if you're selling or buying, if you're moving into a rental. On the pre-move section, I have a rental roommate section and a buy purchase home section. Use whichever pertains to you. It's basically about the real estate and house hunting aspect. The first piece consideration is for everyone. The home piece is kind of broke into two. And then, of course, the moving options are for everyone. The processes and settling in services are for everyone. So there's just one little section where you may want to just pop over, depending on your situation, whether you're renting or buying. First thing and foremost, you must have a lot of apprehensions because moving is still one of the top three stresses in our lives. Moving long distance, it's very stressful because you have to examine everything we own. Basically, we leave everything we know behind, and we move into the unknown. And it's daunting because there's a lot of moving parts. So we're going to walk through this, and I think it's going to put your mind at ease. Think of me as a family friend that's been in this business for 40 plus years. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to sway which direction you should go. I'm just here to give you good professional information, some inside tips and knowledge, and then you make your own decisions as to which way you want to move and the direction you're taking with the various suppliers. You're a consumer, an educated consumer. You're going to get a lot of good information. But at any rate, every journey begins with the first step, and this is it. So thank you very much for purchasing this little course, and I'm going to save you a lot of money, and you're going to walk away knowing a lot more than you did walking in. So let's get at it. Considerations, costs. It's extremely expensive to move these days. It always has been, but with inflation after the pandemic, everything went up, groceries, everything, and the physical move and truck rentals all went up, including, rents and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to discuss costs. We're going to discuss moving into cultures, various cultures. If you're moving to a new city, you're moving into a new culture. If you're moving for work, we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on how to get up and running when you get there. We're going to talk about the kinships and friendships and relationships that you're kind of leaving behind. And of course, we're going to talk about logistics, about how to get this all done and stay sane. Logistics, we're all faced with this. How are you going to move? You have to decide on what method you're going to actually move, whether you're going to hire professional movers, You're going to rent a truck. You're going to get a container. We're going to touch on all those various options in the move section. We're going to give you the pros and cons, and we're going to give you options. There's in between options rather than, renting a truck and doing it yourself or having movers do it. So there's variables in there that may be of interest to you. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about packing all your belongings, organizing all of your items, decluttering, all of your goods, which is a really good exercise to go through. If you look at all this in a very positive manner, we don't get around to doing this stuff very often. So I always look at a move as a really positive experience to kind of get your act together and start fresh in the new location. We've got to talk about the logistics of, updating all your contracts and banks and subscriptions and relevant institutions, things of that nature. This is the ideal time to go through your social media and see what the heck you're actually using on a daily or weekly basis. A lot of us grab streaming services and things of that nature, or we have apps on our phone that may be charging us on a monthly basis. And it's a great time that, if just like a piece of clothing, if you haven't used it for a certain amount of time, you don't need it. And it's a perfect time to get rid of that type of subscription. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when it comes to the purging section of this little class. Um, we all have the legal and administrative problems, changing our addresses and driver's licenses. If you're moving to a new country, this kind of becomes a little more important. If you are moving to a new country, if you're moving overseas, you should look into getting a foreign driver's license beforehand, so that you have transportation when you get there. Credit cards are sometimes difficult to get, and you should look into that as well in advance prior to going. Of course, your visas and work permits and all that thing is absolutely a necessity. All of your medical records, yourself, your pets. Big consideration today with fur babies. Are you getting them into a new vet? How are you going to transport the pets, etc.? We're going to talk on that. Healthcare providers, medical records. And I know this sounds morbid, but depending on your stage in life, it's always a good idea to have a will. Whether if you're a little older, maybe moving for a new position, or if you're moving to see the grandkids, it is a great time. Again, we don't get around to this type of thing. It's a great time to either write or update a will in case anything happens. So again, something just to keep in mind, just throwing it out there. Make notes on this so you can come back and watch this, obviously, but make notes as well so you can kind of tick these things off. The utilities, again, the electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, TV, all that good stuff. You know, again, canceling services and notifying all your current providers if you're transporting the new services to your new location, letting them know that you're moving, and they can get you up and running much quicker. So there's all of these things that come into place. And then on a practical end of things, we all have to consider, the packing and unpacking and organizing. It's a big task. That scares a lot of people. Not, as I said, not only are we moving into the unknown, but we have all this stuff we have to do around the house, and the physical strain of heavy lifting. A lot of us, gym muscles aren't the same as working muscles, if you will. So it's a lot of physical manual labor if you're deciding to do it yourself. I've talked about the financial costs. We're going to touch on what it costs to actually move. And then if you're renting, it's last month's rent. You're getting into mortgages, possibly, bridge financing. You're looking at renter's insurance, all kinds of expenses that are going to hit you. Some of them are basically just transferable, but if you are living at home, or if you're just out of university, these expenses can add up very quickly. And in our rental roommate section, We have a rental budget form that you can put together so that you know what you can spend on rentals in your new area. You know, there's always the risk of damage or loss if you're using movers or if you're doing it yourself, depending on the um, everybody has certain pieces that they're very fond of. It's becoming less a concern as it used to be back in the day, but there is always that risk of loss or damage. The big one is time constraints and scheduling. Coordinating everything, all these moving parts. You have to make sure they all hum together and work and gel so that you can move into your new location, move out, move in with little or no disruption. We're going to give you all kinds of tips and advice on how to do that. And you really have to adhere to those things because you can cost yourself a lot of money if you miss certain schedules. Of course, you have the kinship, the children, the pets, the special needs. If you have any people in your family that has special needs, cleaning and preparing your spaces both at origin and destination. And the big one, the moving business, is full of scammers. It's notorious. It's the wild, wild west out there, and very few, if any, barriers of entry. You can throw up a website, you can call yourself a mover, and it's getting better, but you still have to be very aware of what you're doing. And when you're shopping for intangible promises, you can get scammed out of a lot of money, and we're going to give you tips on how to avoid that going forward. So at least you know when you're walking into that, hopefully you're not using one of these rogue movers, they're called, or brokers or things of that nature. So we're going to talk about that going forward as well. Housing itself, these are all considerations you have to look at, go in eyes wide open so that you know what you're going to be doing. And, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? But it if you go through this with me, you're going to have this all kind of taken care of, and it's be much easier on you. But you have your housing, researching neighborhoods, rental properties, sales, and your current home or in the new city, contacting real estate agents. Just because Mary sends you a postcard doesn't mean that you necessarily should trust her with the largest asset you have. Um, we're going to tell you how to question and interview real estate agents, and you should have at least 3 what they call listing presentations, and we're going to furnish you with the questions to ask them and make an educated decision. This isn't about Frank at Little League. This is about a very, very big piece of your portfolio. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about arranging temporary accommodations if you need it, things of that nature. We're going to talk about researching the new city, local amenities and things of that when you're moving in someplace. Mention creating a budget on the rental end of things, pre-qualified mortgage prior to going, obviously. And you should really include the moving costs. A lot of people don't think about moving until they have all this kind of stuff in place, and then they start looking at moving and they realize that it is a major cost, and it's something that should be looked at upfront, accounted for, and kind of put into the budget. I'm going to help you through that. And of course, the timelines, when you have to be in the new city, uh, planning everything, kind of working everything backwards so it kind of ticks along. And again, we'll walk you through all of that. You may need temporary accommodations when you are looking for a home, or if the goods are being shipped by a mover. There's an old saying: a fish and house guests both start to stink after 3 days. So it's always great to to stay with friends, but you can't impose too long. It's just out of common courtesy, you should kind of time it so that you're not just hanging around looking for a place for months and months and months. Hotels, of course, cost, location, and amenities. When you're looking at something temporary, if you're kind of doing a bit of research online and looking for homes, and you've kind of narrowed down a neighborhood or an area, it may be a good idea to rent a hotel or something in that area so you get a feel for the vibe of the area, and you can easily go out and look for things and look at properties. You may want to get into short term rentals. There's an entire industry called temporary accommodations. You just have to search them, and they're organizations that specialize in short term accommodations in hotels, condos, or hotels themselves. They have a kitchenette, you can live there type thing. It's more a little office maybe to the side, or you can go right into an Airbnb or Verbo or something and look for an area downtown or wherever you're planning on living. Uh, the Verbo or Airbnb is always a great option to kind of get a little temporary base set up. And again, kind of in the area where you think you might want to live. Consider where you're going to be working, or consider where your grandkids are, or where the schools are, whatever makes sense to you. We'll go into that in a little more detail when you're actually looking for a home. And then if you're there searching for a home, try to find some temporary accommodations in or about that area so you get a good feel for everything. Your employment, if you are moving for a new job. Firstly, if you're moving for a new job and your HR department sent you here, good for them, because a lot of lump sum or allowances are not designed for or enough to carry the entire cost of relocation. So if you go in with an educated approach, you can manage that lump sum a lot better and realize that there's going to be a lot of costs. Some people think, well, I'm going to pocket the allowance and just kind of wing it. Um, but you have to show up on time, and winging it without a guidance of any kind can turn into a kind of shaky first few weeks, because you will be living someplace without any furniture or not having a place to live at all, and running up some serious bills on your own account, because a lot of allowances won't cover a relocation. They help, and that's they're a lump sum to kind of assist in the move, but you may have to go into your own pocket for it. But on top of that, what are the politics at the new office? What are you getting into? What's the vibe again where you're going? What's the team like? Who are the people on the team? How do you blend in quickly? And of course, what is the culture like in the new office? Even if you're staying within the same company and just transferring, there are, as we all know, politics in various locations. We're going to kind of help you out through that and kind of get you up and running in the settling in portion at the end of this little course. But I would strongly suggest you pick up The First 90 Days by Watkins and have a read of that. It's kind of designed for people in leadership roles, but I truly think it's a great book. There's a few editions out now, more current editions, um, to hit the ground running. Most management uh, give the employee, about 3 months, 4 months to start producing. And so what you want to do is get off on a good foot and hit the ground running at your new location. So you have to employment and new jobs. You have to keep all that into consideration. Take it all into consideration. Family, friends, the routines. You get up every Saturday, you go to your little coffee shop, you spend some time with friends down there. You have teams you may be involved in. You could have a trailing partner. There could be someone following you to your new position, and does your current employee have any trailing partner programs? Do they try to help people following their partners find new jobs or locations? Is it time to start that home business? Can you work remote? Will their employee or employer, excuse me, um, provide them with work in the new location? Do they have competition in that location? Can you jump ship? And the trailing partner I'm talking about now, of course, jump ship and work at another company. So you've got all of those considerations. That's a big one right there. A lot of people have concerns about families and partners when making the move, and it kind of throw a damper into a relocation. My opinion is that a relocation is a fantastic opportunity to make some real changes, a real good time to grow, and it's something you should have a serious conversation about. And pets, of course, fur babies. How are they going to handle? They're pretty resilient. They're quite flexible as long as they get into their routines. But there are all kinds of organizations that move pets, and you can go ahead out, get established, board the pet, and then there's organizations that'll fly the pet out for you later on down whenever you get yourself settled. They're called pet relocation services. So there's a number of them that kick around. Take a look on. Uh, the other thing you have to do, which is very important when you're just considering moving into a new location, is the cost of living differential. What does it cost to live in the new location compared to where you are right now? And this is a good little website. It's kind of um, it's run by the membership, so the data may not be spot on every second, but it gives you a really good idea if you're moving New York to you know California or Texas, or if you're moving Ottawa to Toronto or Toronto to PEI or what have you. If you go on here and check the cost of living differential, you can see what it usually costs you, either more or less in your new area. And then you account for that when you're making your budget and when you're looking for a home. Obviously you go on the MLS and take a look and see what the homes are in your new area. But when you're looking at temporary accommodations, cost of living, rentals, all that kind of good stuff, you should really check this out first so that you know what you can budget for and how you can survive in your new area. I love this little website right here. It's called walkscore.com. And if you're looking for rental properties, it's a really cool little site. It gives you the walkability, bikeability, the transit. If you don't have a car and you're love to cycle, or you're a transit kind of person, this walk score is a great little site, and it gives you the feel of the city, a little bit of crime rate and all that kind of good stuff, and where to kind of position yourself. And it also has um, apartments and condos and things like that for rent on this site as well. But it gives you there's Pad Hopper, and there's all kinds of sites that you can get on and start looking for rentals, but figure out what you can afford in your new city and how much it's actually going to cost you. Or if you're moving from a expensive city to a lower cost of living area, you can afford something nicer maybe and get into a bigger apartment or what have you. Just have more money in your pocket. Mentioned it before. It's a great time to start some positive habits, a little front porch philosophy. Transitioning, moving, there's a lot of transactions. I always like to look a little deeper into the actual transition because, as I say, it is the only time that you're going to, there's death, divorce, and moving are all big deals in our lives, and moving can be used as an extremely positive experience. Set new goals, lose the baggage and all the bad habits you may have had, get out of some of these toxic relationships if you're in them, and really start, you know, if you're changing everything, why not change your life? And if we look at it going in as a really positive experience, and we know what we're doing, it can be an extremely positive experience. I'm going to walk you through everything, so not to worry. I just want to give you some of the upfront things that you're going to have to know. Um, you can also pick up my book. It is called Relocating, and it's a handbook on moving long distance. It's paperback or electronic version. I'd get the paperback if I was you because it has probably one of the best to-do lists I've ever seen, and it walks you through. This is what this course is kind of based on, but it walks you through all the processes. It's available on Amazon. And it's a little pocketbook. It's only 185 or whatever pages, but it gives you all the things you have to do and you just tick them off, and it's a perfect to-do list, and you just carry it around with you and away you go. So we're going to walk through this together. These are just things to go in eyes wide open. I thank you very much for staying with me through this first little session, and now we're going to get into actually talking about the move piece here going forward. So thanks a lot. See you in the next module.